Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
There's something wrong. There's something wrong. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it's there. Like a splinter, driving you mad.
Bring the ship up to broadcast depth. We're going in. Taking Neo to see her.
See who? The Oracle.
Welcome aboard, everybody. We're happy you could join us yet again for another round of what we hope to be insightful discussion. I'm James Sangster, founder of Houston Ghost Research. HGR is a spiritual crisis intervention and paranormal investigation group in Houston. I'm also the author of Help I'm Haunted, Dealing with Ghosts, available on Amazon Kindle. We're joined by Keith Davis, our co-host, fellow intellectual, seeker of truth, and my partner in crime. We indeed have a special show this evening and a special guest. I know very little about the Quran and Islamic spiritual practices, so I expect I'll learn quite a bit during the course of this conversation. I want to apologize in advance for my horrible pronunciation of Arabic terminology. I assure you no disrespect is intended. Our guest for tonight is a new friend of mine, and I'm proud to now call him a friend. Speaking with us tonight is Brother Ali, an Islamic holy man and spiritual healer in training under his esteemed teacher, Brother Rahman. Words truly can't convey the amount of respect I have for both of these gentlemen and how they put themselves in harm's way to protect their fellow man. As far as I'm concerned, they're true warriors and servants of God. You can reach Brother Ali and Rahman through their website, www.brotherrahman.net. I first encountered them through a website I'm now frequenting. It's a discussion board for light workers. It's called polarisrising.net. There's also an interview in text with Brother Rahman on Polaris Rising, linked on their homepage. For anyone interested in this subject, it's well worth the read. Much of the same material is covered because that was an exceptional interview as well. But we kind of branch out from there and go in a little different direction. Ali goes by Black Dragon on polarisrising.net, and those URLs will be in the show notes, just like always. So we'll jump into the conversation now with Brother Ali, and I hope you guys find this as entertaining as I do. What got you started in this? I mean, where did your spiritual path start, and what led you here to where you're at now?
Well, I came from a religious family, and I knew about, like jinns, and I knew about these things, but I really didn't get too into them. I'm a pharmacist, and I'm a physician assistant, so most of my knowledge was medical related. If anyone had a spiritual problem, to me, I would label them off as someone with a specific mental disorder.
Yeah.
What happened was I was on eBay one day, and I was looking at some items, and I was looking at rings, and this was about 4 years ago, and back then eBay was selling paranormal items, like items that have spirits and stuff attached to it. Well, I seen a listing accidentally, and I started reading it, and I was really interested in it, so I ordered the item. After ordering I ordered lots of items. I mean, over a 2-month period, I probably had like 50 different items. I didn't know anything about them. Every time I read something and it seemed cool, I would order it. What happened was my wife ended up getting attacked. She ended up getting possessed.
Okay.
And, originally I was like, no, it's mentally related. It's something, because that's how my knowledge is from medicine. So I couldn't grasp the concept of it being anything else. But when you look at all the symptoms she was having, it was unreal. So
Right.
It was 4 a.m. one night, and she had a little episode. So I called up my mother, and I was like, Mom, I think, my wife is possessed. And she was like, what do you mean? Are you guys arguing or something? I was like, no, I think there's something really wrong. So she told my father, and my father knows Brother Rahman. They're close friends. I had seen him in the past, but, I only talked to him once or twice back then. So my father said, look, there's this guy. I want you to meet him, take him to your house. So I picked him up from his house, and we started driving to my house. I started talking to him, and everything just clicked. Everything he told me, even though it was only like a 20-minute car ride, everything he told me, I was so interested in it. And then seeing him, take care of my wife's problem, I was so enthusiastic about it, I wanted to go ahead and do the same thing. So I asked him, could you teach me? Since I started buying all these items, obviously I'm interested in it. Could you teach me? I want to be helping people too. So I think 6 months down the line, he decided to teach me. He ended up moving with me in Michigan, and that was it. And then we ended up coming over here.
So were you part of Islam originally, or did you convert to Islam?
No, I grew up as a Muslim.
Okay. Man, just listening to that story, I do a lot of paranormal investigation here in Houston, and I can tell you just from your short description that you're so lucky to have had a resource like him to turn to, because that's very rare. A lot of people get into that situation because they're curious, and then they get into the same sort of situation that you describe, where somebody's getting attacked, or you're bordering on possession or actual possession, and then they just don't have anywhere to turn. So I'm glad you were able to find somebody to help you, and especially within your own culture and your own religion.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I was so desperate. I went, when my wife was at home, honestly, I was scared of my wife. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't want to be around her.
Yeah, sure. That's a scary thing.
It's not normal. Like, I've been around schizophrenic people. I've worked at hospitals, so I see it. But what she was going through was not normal. I didn't want to be with her. So I went to churches and everything. I went to churches, Catholic, Baptist churches, and they all told me the same thing. Oh, it's nothing. Take her to a doctor.
Right.
And one of them gave me holy water, and it was like, just give her this. It was like, they were so nonchalant about it. They didn't even care.
Right.
They didn't want to listen about it. They just said, oh, there's nothing wrong with her. It's in her mind.
Right.
But after that, when I met Brother Rahman, and he made me realize, look, it's not in her mind. This is an actual problem. Things like this happen, and this is what we need to do to solve the problem.
Right. Yeah. Wow, man, I'm so glad you were able to find him as a resource. There's sort of a universal saying among a lot of the occult traditions and really all the spiritual paths that states, when the student's ready, the teacher's going to appear, and it sounds like that really happened for you. So can you give us a little bit about your philosophy in how it relates to exorcism, specifically with how you approach it kind of from the perspective of the Nation of Islam and as a Muslim, versus how the West looks at exorcism in particular, because those two cultures have very different perspectives.
Right. I guess Islam is a bit more open to demonic problems just because of the fact demons, jinns are mentioned in the Quran. I think it's 32 times. There's an actual chapter in the Quran labeled the jinn that speaks specifically of them. So I think for that reason, so the Muslims are growing up reading about it, hearing about it, they're more immune to it, and they're more quick to say, yes, this person has a spiritual problem. But here in the West, you really don't hear of demons much. Even in the Bible, they're spoken of, but, during, like, church visits, which I've been to, they really don't talk about stuff like this. So I guess because of that, when a Christian or a Catholic person looks into exorcism, they need solid evidence. Like,
right.
In Islam, we see someone possessed, we can go perform an exorcism, but something like that with the church. They need proof. They need, which is not a bad thing. I'm not against it.
Yeah.
But they need proof. They need to see documentation stating, hey, this person has a specific problem. It's not a mental disorder, and only then when we can say, yeah, go ahead and perform an exorcism. Where in Islam, if we feel like this person has a problem, we don't need anyone's permission. We just go ahead and do it.
So I think probably one of those common denominators is a lot of the Western religions, they don't encourage or recognize a sensitivity to spirit. They're not awakened, as I usually frame it, they don't have the ability to sense spirits. Is that something that that your path teaches? I mean, can you walk up to somebody and go, "Oh yeah, they're obviously possessed because I see the spirit"?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Really? So you guys?
Yeah. See, I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a couple of Muslim people out there that think, hey, because I pray 5 times a day, because I read the Quran, I'm going to be more spiritual than the person next to me, which is not true.
Right.
Being spiritual by religion is one thing. Being spiritual so you can sense and see demons is a whole different thing. Yes, they correspond with each other. The more religious you are, the more time you invest in religion, because your spiritual level will increase, your aura, your energy will be cleansed. It's easier for you to sense negativity. But that doesn't mean that any Muslim down the street, anybody that follows Islam can go sense jinns. It's absolutely not. We are told about them, what they are, and that, Islam, we say that the world was created for 2 beings, humans and jinns. Heaven and hell was created for 2 beings, human and jinns. And because of that, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to sense a jinn. We learn about them, but we don't learn to sense them, anything like that. That's a whole different field.
And what did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Humans and what?
Jinn. That's actually kind of my next question. So, can you define for us from our
exactly what I was going to ask?
Yeah, can you define for us from our perspective what is a jinn from the Western perspective?
Okay, we call jinn in Islam. It's an Arabic word. Jinn can refer to a good entity as well as a negative entity. In the Bible, there is no good jinns. There's only bad jinns, which are just called demons.
Okay.
And in Islam, we say, in Christianity, they say when Satan was kicked out of heaven, the specific angels that left with him, those are now today's demons. In Islam, we don't say that. We say Satan left alone. And once he got to earth, because jinns were here 1,000 years before mankind. So they were already here. So when Satan came, a lot of them followed him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. That's a deviation from Western mythology.
Yeah. So we say there's good, just like humans, there's good and bad. We say they have weddings, they have families, they eat, they do everything that we do, but they're just created differently and we can't see them. Where in Christianity, they're just bad, they're demonic.
I gotcha. So do you guys recognize the I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it, the occurrence of human ghosts? Like, I pass over and my spirit, I'm obviously not a jinn if I pass over. Do you guys work with or encounter human spirits?
This is what we say. It is said that every human being is appointed a jinn, a entity. This entity is what makes you do wrong, wants you to do bad. I guess kind of like a conscious. We say the day a person is born, there's one assigned to him. In Arabic, it's called Qareen, Qareen. Pretty much this is an exact replica jinn of you. It's been with you since birth, and when you pass away, it doesn't pass away. So in Islam, what we say is, say if Brian passed away and someone is sensing Brian's spirit, technically it's not Brian's spirit. Because in every religion it says the soul goes to God. So what we say is the spirit is this person's Qareen, the jinn that was appointed to them since childbirth, which is now replicating that human, making others think that this entity is really the person who passed away's spirit.
Aha. So, okay, let me reiterate that back to you to make sure I understand it. It sounds like from the Islamic perspective, everyone has sort of a doppelganger or a copy that's a completely separate entity that is assigned to them, and when they pass over, they leave this realm and they go to God or the other realm, but the doppelganger stays.
And keeps doing ill to others, it sounds like.
Yeah, some of them will just, once the bond is broken, once a person's passed away, some will just go dwell in a different place, do their own thing, so to say.
Would you say they had free will?
Yeah, they have free will. They have free will.
Okay.
Once we pass away, it is not their job to make us do bad. They can do whatever they want. Most of the time they do bad. They haunt places, and they cause problems, is what we say.
That's
so pretty much, yeah, exactly what you said. Once a person passes away, what lingers behind them is an entity that was assigned to them, which is it's a jinn that was assigned to them since birth, and
Okay.
that will eventually die too.
Oh, so jinn aren't immortal? They have a lifespan?
No, they have a lifespan. They all die. Everything created dies. That's why in the Quran it says heaven and hell is created for man and jinn. If jinn didn't die, then heaven and hell will only be created for humans.
Well, even in the Bible, it says heaven and earth shall pass away.
So
yeah, but see, we don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I've read the Bible, but yeah, I've read that. But we say that eventually hell will be gone, and everyone will be in heaven. We don't say heaven and hell both will be gone. We say that we call it akhira, which means the life after, and the life after consists of either hell or heaven. We say that life will never go away. That's the eternal life. You do bad here, you'll end up in hell. But at the day of judgment, when everyone is punished, eventually everybody will go into heaven and will be forgiven of their sins, and then hell will be wiped out.
Well, I forgot to mention an important part that follows that, and then all things will become as new.
Exactly.
Why do we all have to be punished? Why can't we all just get Jello shots and hang out
I
by the
know.
pool?
That's what I've always thought.
Because, I mean, God already created something that listens to exactly what God wants it to listen to, which is angels. So why would God not create something that has the free will to do good or bad? I mean, let me ask you, if you can create a robot that can do whatever it wants, and it chooses to do good, it chooses to serve you, I think that's a lot more better than me creating something and forcing it to serve me. God already created something that are forced to serve him, which are angels. So humans are created so they can do good and bad, and when we do good, it makes God so much more happier. This is why I said that humans are the best of all creations. We're above angels, because angels can only do good.
Right. I've thought about that quite a lot. You know, if I were to be a supreme creator and create my own universe someday, I wouldn't want something where everything has to follow my will. I mean, that's sort of...
Oh, of course. What's the point? What's the point of creating the world then? What's the point?
That's no fun. That's like playing Sims and you have all the cheat codes. You know, you play it for about an hour and it's fun, and then after that you're
boring,
like, there's no challenge. And
no.
You don't get any reward from that, for emotionally, you know, from the challenge.
But when God sees, okay, I've created this being who can do so much bad and he can do so much good, but he decided to do good, this makes God happy. This makes him proud of what he created, because, wow, look at this. He can do anything he wants, anything, but he decided to do something good.
Yeah, that makes it so much more meaningful.
And that's why we're capable as humans and as humankind to do some of the most beautiful things in the world that we can't even imagine, and some of the most treacherous things that can be done we can't even imagine.
Exactly. We say we're the strongest creations. It is said there is twice as many jinns as there's humans, and if all of them combined together, they still couldn't defeat us.
Huh. So you mentioned angels a couple of times. Are angels recognized by Islam?
Of course.
Okay.
We believe in Angel Michael, Angel Gabriel. We believe in all the archangels. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
they're
basically even the same names. Okay, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, instead of Gabriel, we say Jibra'il. Instead of Michael, we say Mika'il.
Are they still assigned sort of the same attributes and responsibilities for the most part?
Yep, pretty much, yeah. I mean, we say that Angel Gabriel was, I guess, so to say, assigned to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and it was he who, through God, guided our prophet. So technically, Angel Gabriel is known for that part, majority of that part, that he's the one that showed Prophet Muhammad the way through God.
I gotcha. I didn't realize the Western Christianity and Islam was so similar.
The major difference that we have is we say Jesus was a prophet, while you guys say, Jesus was the Son of God, Jesus is Lord. That's like the major difference. Everything else, it's the same. I've read the Old Testament, I read the New Testament, I read the King James Bible. That's what I just stated was the major difference. But besides all that, it's really all the same.
Wow, that's really both encouraging and disparaging at the same time. Encouraging because we've got a very similar mythology, but discouraging and disparaging because we all can't get along, even though we have such similarities.
I mean, look at all the bad things that Muslims are doing around the world. I mean, sad to say, they're doing some of the most stupidest, most ignorant things, and they want to do it in the name of God. They don't even realize that in the Quran, everything they're doing, it has been forbidden. Don't hurt children. It said during war you're not supposed to hurt a tree. They're killing people, which is just wrong. What these terrorists are doing is completely against Islam. Nowhere in the Quran does it say it's justifiable what you're doing. Nowhere.
Well, yeah, and it's not like Christianity doesn't have any blood on their hands either. Look at the history of the Crusades. That was
of course
unspeakable.
Of course, right. I guess this is. Every religion had a bad time. I guess this is a bad time for Muslims. They're doing a lot of stupid, idiotic things, and because of a specific group of people's action, it's making the entire religion look awful. Not bad, it's making it look awful. I know Muslim people now that are embarrassed to say they're Muslim.
Hey, man, there's some people really on the right with Christianity, and that's what I grew up in. That, you watch the documentary Jesus Camp, and it just scares the crap out of me.
Right. My wife, when I married my wife, she was Christian. She converted on her own. I didn't tell her to convert. My family knew. We had a Christian and an Islamic wedding. We had a priest and everything. My mom was totally cool with it. But over time, when she read the Quran, she understood it. It took a little bit of time. I didn't have her do anything. I told her she can stay to any religion she wants. I married her for her. But
right.
She was Christian.
That is so heartwarming. That is really, really so heartwarming. With all the war and chaos, just to think that folks can hold hands and get along with everything you see on the news.
Exactly. It's hard, but it happens. Not that much, though.
So to kind of get back on the track, in the other interview that was posted on Polaris, and I'll post a link to that in the show notes. Mm-hmm. You guys talked about classifications of jinn.
Right.
I know you can categorize things a million ways, but can you give us sort of a broad spectrum other than just the good and the evil? Are there sub-classifications within that?
Okay, just like there are some jinns that are considered more stronger than the other. There is the Murid jinn. We're here in the West, not in the West, but a lot of the scholars in the West say a Murid jinn is a good jinn, where in the Quran it says it's a bad jinn. And then there's the Ifrit, which is also mentioned in the Quran. This was a main jinn that served Prophet Solomon, peace be upon him. That's another kind of jinn. They're also really powerful. And then it goes down to Hadams, which in Islam we say that every letter in the Quran is protected by an angelical being. It's not an angel. It is similar to an angel because it is assigned to protect something sacred. And that is a Hadam. And below that is a jinn that's assigned to it to assist it. And in Islam, we say when a person reaches a spiritual state, they're so pious, they have access to these entities and can use them to help other people.
Wow, that's fascinating. So every letter and every passage has an entity, a sacred entity assigned to it.
Exactly. For example, if this page has 350 words and they're all different, there's 350 entities guarding that word. And then there's an entity guarding the entire chapter as well.
So what about, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, so you'll have to correct me. What about the Shayatan, Shaytan?
Shaitan means devil, but it is also a term used to describe a specific jinn. Now, yeah, you could say there's a group of jinn called Shaitan jinn, just like you can say there's a group of people who are really, really bad, KKK
Gotcha.
or something.
Gotcha, okay.
So a Shaitan jinn is just a very powerful, bad jinn. So we call it a Shaitan because Shaitan means the devil, so they're really bad, devil-like.
Okay, I gotcha. What about Fae or Fairy?
Fairy, which is called Buddy, P-A-R-I, not much is known about him. I mean, a jinn, a hadam, a ifrit, a murid, a fairy, at the end of the day in Islam, they're all considered jinn because a jinn is not used to describe a specific entity. It's used to describe a whole creation because, jinn pretty much means can't be seen, something that the normal eye can't see. So a fairy is just another class of a jinn, I guess you can say. You're not going to find much literature about them in like the Quran or any of the Islamic books. But if you look into the ritual books that are Islamic, there is rituals for fairies, and what it says about them is they're beautiful creatures, and they assist mankind if one gets a hold of one with luck and preventing magic, but they're known for their beauty.
Okay. Are the Qadam, are they useful for exorcism or how?
Absolutely. If one has access to a hadam, they can use it to perform a exorcism. Absolutely, to reverse black magic, anything.
Talking about the Fae, that really kind of makes me think of my own mythology and my own background from Ireland and Wales and the Celtic mystic faiths. They also talk exclusively about fairy as nature spirits predominantly. And
exactly.
So, would you say that those are the same sort of entities?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, because a lot of the rituals to conjure a fairy need to be done by like a body of water, a natural body of water in a wooded area. So I guess you could say it's a nature spirit, I guess, because it develops more in places that consist of a lot of nature, like wooded areas next to rivers and ponds.
So does the Quran actually go into step by step? You mentioned a couple of times rituals. Does the Quran actually go through and give you sort of stereo instructions? This is how you do it, or is it more like? Okay, so that's sort of apocrypha. That's separate. Where do you get that information?
That's not even to use the Quran to bring forward a specific entity. Is not nowhere in the Quran. This is just something that people have learned, I guess, on their own. I mean, I really don't know how it was learned. I really don't.
James, I wonder if it's similar to the Bible, the way we know about Michael, the archangel, and the things that you do in your group, the specific things that come up. I wonder if it's similar to that in a way.
Yeah, possibly.
Do you know what I'm talking about, James?
Yeah, I don't know. It certainly could be similar. So it sounds like it's just sort of developed as folk magic. Like people have sort of organically figured out how to do this, and knowledge is passed from teacher to student. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, like if you know how to drive a car, doesn't technically mean you know how to fly an airplane. It's something else you have to learn. Even though they both involve traveling, they're completely different. To use the Quran to bring forward an entity, there's nowhere in the Quran that says, hey, read this and this is what will happen. Absolutely not. The Quran is considered a guidance. Use this book to guide you. Do what the book says, and you will go to heaven. That's all the Quran is.
Okay.
But when people figured out, oh, hey, this passage is protected by an X amount of entities, and this letter, they also figured out ways to use them to bring them forward to assist people.
So this is going to sound flippant, but it's not. It's just spoken out of my own ignorance. Can I go on Amazon.com and find something where somebody's outlined rituals to contact the entities that are spoken about in the Quran? Really?
Of course. You can find it all day, every day. You can find them on eBay. Does that mean they'll work? Absolutely not.
Right.
If it was that simple, everybody in the world would have a jinn companion that they can use to do whatever. It's not. Honestly, my teacher says that maybe 0.25% of the world population can actually bring forward jinns from the Quran. I mean, some people are naturally gifted. Like some people are naturally geniuses when they're born. Some people are so naturally sensitive to the unseen that it is said, when a person reads the Quran, the jinns that are around you, if they're Muslim, they listen. And when they start listening, some people, like the very select few, can pick them up. Where other people, like as in me, it took me years and years and years of training. Like I've spent like 24 hours just reading. I have fasted for a number of days. I mean, I haven't worked for 4 years. I haven't had a job. This is all I do. And it takes a lot of time. People have spent more time than I did, and they still don't, get to the spiritual level. It's really hard to get to that spiritual level where you can use the Quran to bring forth an entity to help someone. To use the Quran to help someone by reading prayers on them is a different thing. But to invoke an entity from it is a completely different thing. And honestly, some Islamic scholars are against it.
Why do you think they're against it?
Because in the Quran it says, God says, which we say Allah, and just to clarify, Allah and God is the same thing. I've seen a lot of ignorant people saying, hey, go pray to your Allah. Allah is just the Arabic way of saying God. That's all.
Right. Okay.
Would it be fair to call him Creator? Are you comfortable with calling it? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. I call him Creator, Lord, God. Yeah, I see all that.
I think most people are favorable with phrases that resemble all that.
When I write about him, I usually put God, and then parenthetically beside it, I'll put TM, the telemarketing version of God.
Yeah.
I like to think he's got a sense of humor. I mean, look at some of the crazy stuff he's created. He's got to have a sense of humor.
Right.
I'm not trying to get it on the side road here, but I just ask this question quickly. Because I know Christianity and Muslims have this in common. They both believe that their way is the only way. I know it says in the Bible that the only way is through Christ. The only way to heaven is through Christ, God, in the name of Jesus Christ. But now, do Muslims believe that's the only way?
No.
Okay, what's the belief?
From what I remember, the Bible says that only Christians, only people that go through Christ will go to heaven. In the Quran, we say everybody will go to heaven. It doesn't matter how you'll be punished. I mean, you'll be severely punished for if you've done bad things. But we say, in the Quran it says, the Jews, the Christians, do not worry. Your day is near. You too will dwell in paradise. Where in the Bible it says, really? You have to go through Jesus. Yeah, we say.
Yeah, I mean, forgive my ignorance.
Everybody will go to heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's kind of on the western side of the equation. Seems to think St. Peter's sticking up there as a security guard in front of the gate, checking IDs, and if you don't have you don't have the right, if you're not on the list, you're not getting in. I think South Fork got it right. I think God's just this giant platypus somewhere who's completely abstracted from it's beyond our comprehension, really. But he loves us. He obviously created us. He's looking out for us. But I highly doubt that he really cares one way or the other, as long as we're doing good.
Yeah, and like we say, if you do bad, you will be punished, but you are promised heaven. You will go to heaven. Now, I guess I might be wrong, but I think specific people will not go to heaven. I might be wrong. I think those are idol worshippers. People that worship a idol, have multiple gods. Because in the Quran it says...
know who they are.
What was that?
What'd you say, Keith?
Oh, I just said those. I said those people. I think they know who they are.
Yeah, I don't want to discriminate any religion. I respect every single religion, So I'm not going to mention the religion. I mean, hey, if a person is religious and they believe in a higher power, that's awesome. So I'm not here to discriminate, but we say that he who has multiple gods or worships something that he made on his own that's supposed to represent God will not go to heaven. I might be wrong, but from what I remember, I think that's what it says, because God will say to those people when he's punishing them, now where is your God? Why aren't your gods here to help you? Oh, wait, because I'm the only God. There is no other God but me. But because you didn't put faith in me, you're bound to hell forever.
Well, I mean, if we're really honest about it and we look at the logic of the situation, they probably don't want in anyway.
Probably not.
So,
I mean, in the Quran, it allows a Muslim person to marry a Christian or a Jewish person, and you cannot force them to change. You can't. That's a sin. If a person, say if I married someone and they change their religion because of me, then I'm sinning. The only way this person can change is if they decide to do it on their own. Where I think in the Bible it says a Christian's only supposed to marry a Christian. I might be wrong, though.
I'm sorry, what was that last sentence? And I might be able to confirm it.
In the Bible, it says a Christian should only marry a Christian.
Well, it says don't yoke yourself unequally, which is kind of, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but
right.
Yeah,
basically
I don't know how
it just says don't be unequally yoked.
Right.
It depends on, who you talk to and their particular interpretation, right? All of these sacred texts are all...
Exactly.
It's all about interpretation. So, what a jinn look like?
Now, an average person, when a person describes a jinn, say if me and you go to a healer and we say, hey, what does a jinn look like? He will say either they're really beautiful or they're really scary. Now, technically, we don't know what they really look like. But because of the fact that when people do see them, they're in odd forms or really scary forms, like in performing rituals, that doesn't mean they're in that form. For example, if I do a ritual to invoke a jinn for 41 days, within a time period, if I'm doing everything right, it is that even though I'm conjuring this entity to do good, that entity does not want to be under my control. I mean, like, if I told you, hey, we're going to go help poor people, me and you, I mean, you want to do your own things too, So for that reason, when rituals are being done, the entity will do its best to get you to stop. Now, some people say the entity is doing that to test you, to see if you're capable of handling an entity. But other scholars say, no, the entity is scaring you because it doesn't want to be under your command. So that all goes down to what you want to believe. But when an entity comes to you, it'll come in a really scary form. So hopefully you get scared and you stop doing your ritual and you don't go back to it. And for that reason, a lot of people say, oh, a jinn is really scary. But what we say is, what I say is, and me and my teacher, it's not that the jinn is really scary. The jinn just chose a really scary form to come in front of you in hopes that you will stop doing the ritual. So after the end of a ritual, if you're successful, this entity will come to you in a beautiful form. They'll be glowing, like either a very handsome man or a very beautiful woman. Now, does that mean that's a real form? No. But because that form is more pleasable to the eye, and because you've been successful in your ritual, they chose to come to you in a form where you're not going to be scared to talk to them, and it'll be easier for you to talk to them, where versus it's trying to talk to someone that's really scary.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that jives with a lot of the Western Bible, too. If you look at some of the descriptions of some of the angels, with 7 wings and all sorts of stuff, I mean, it's just kind of boggles your comprehension to even try to put an animal like that together.
Exactly. It's abnormal for us. We can't even think like that. That's why when someone sees something like that, hey, it might be beautiful, but because it's something that they've never seen, they might get scared from it.
Yeah. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, man, for sure.
Right, exactly.
So what about, you mentioned earlier that they have their own lives, and it sounds like they just have their own little society. What about the stories you hear about romantic relationships with how does that work out? I mean, that doesn't sound like that's going to be a good thing for either party involved.
It's not going to be a good thing. First of all, entities, they're created from fire, so they're naturally hot-tempered. Because we are considered the most beautiful creation, it is said they envy us and they fall in love with us more so. Because a jinn can change its form, that doesn't mean it's its real form. If a person is naturally beautiful, this is the way they are. They haven't changed themselves to become beautiful. This is how they are. And I feel for that reason, specific entities fall in love with humans. But how will that pan out? Some scholars say it is okay, but it is not recommended. Because, first of all, if somebody asks you for your husband, what are you going to say? Oh, my husband, you can't see him because he's a jinn? You're going to sound like an idiot. So, a lot of scholars say, hey, for that reason, because it's abnormal, it's not normal, don't do it. Other scholars say, do it, just realize there's going to be consequences, because eventually, because of how they're created, what they are, they're going to want to grab a full hold of you. Like, we know of cases where a jinn fell in love with a woman, and it came to her in a really beautiful form of a nice young man, and she liked him back. And eventually, it ended up possessing her because she was spending too much time, which is not even much time from my understanding, talking to her mother or her brother on the phone.
Wow.
That's another reason that scholars say, because they're hot-headed, they're temperamental. They're not, even though we're alike in many ways, also in many ways we're not alike. And eventually, when the jinn sees you communicating with your kind, it's going to get jealous. And it's not going to want you to do that. And then it'll show its bad side to you.
That definitely doesn't sound like a recipe for eternal happiness.
No, that doesn't sound fun at all.
So this lady that you were talking about who eventually got possessed by the jinn and started this relationship, I assume that I would call it she's psychic or sensitive. She had the ability to perceive on the spiritual plane.
Exactly. She was extra sensitive. And she, to some, she might not even be beautiful. She might be just an average girl. I mean, only because a jinn falls in love with someone, that doesn't mean this person's drop dead gorgeous. I mean, we all have our own taste, just like jinn. But the one thing that really attracted that jinn to that person is they can sense that jinn easier. Now, if I love someone, of course, I want them to sense me, right? I want them to know I'm here.
Right.
So, hey, this person I'm attracted to, and to top it off, hey, they can sense me. They can see me. I don't have to try as hard. This person is definitely for me, is how a jinn might feel.
They seek you out.
Right.
That sounds like a complete Romeo-Juliet kind of situation, no matter how you slice it. Mm-hmm. So other than the Hadam, or Hadam, I know I'm butchering that pronunciation, are there, outside of that category, which you've already talked about, and they obviously seem like they can be helpful, assuming you can establish contact with one, are there other jinn who can be helpful? I know we're going to get into this here in a few minutes, but spirit keeping and that sort of thing, can you actually have, outside of binding something to you, can you have a working productive relationship with a jinn?
Yeah, that's the proper way of having it. Having an entity bind it to an object and given to you is far different than me doing a ritual and then me having a contract with an entity that, hey, when I say this or that word, you will come to me, you will assist me. That right there's a whole different ballgame. That entity who is not binded to anything but has a working contract for me is far stronger than an entity that's binded to an object. You think when black magicians do magic on someone, they have like a little ring that they bought off eBay? No, absolutely not. They perform various rituals, and they have a contract with an entity which is binded to nothing. This is I'll do this for you if you do this for me, and that entity is far more stronger and can cause much more damage than something binded to an object.
It sounds like they've almost retained their free will in that situation if they're not bound.
Many times an entity will, only because an entity is bound to an object, it doesn't mean that it has to live there for the rest of his life. Pretty much, I guess it's like a telephone. That, yes, there is ways you can trap an entity in a specific stone, but the most favorable method is like a telephone line, that when you have this item in your hand and you do XYZ or say this word, that the entity has to come to you. This is a contract that's made between the conjurer. Also, many times the entity will want to know, hey, why am I being bound to this object? Who's this person? And you say, hey, it's Michael Smith, and he wants a jinn. The jinn will say, why? Why can't he do his own ritual?
Right. Great question. I was going to ask that. Great question. Why can't he do his own ritual?
Because the conjurer will say, hey, and it doesn't only take one ritual to conjure a jinn. It takes years and years. I mean, if it was one ritual, everyone would do a ritual and have an entity. It takes years and years and years of practice. It takes time, dedication, and hey, this person doesn't got the time. Understand, we're human. We have, just like you, we have things to do. He doesn't have 50 hours a week to dedicate. He has kids, but he's a good person, and he is working on becoming more spiritual. He's learning about you, but he wants to have your creation on his side, even though he's not going to be able to sense you fully. Just him knowing you're there will push on more to learn more about it. And at times, the conditions.
In your opinion, why does it need to take so long to get to that level, or does it? Or is that just a belief system someone needs to adopt to make it okay that the average person just can't go home and do this? Like, everybody can't do this. You have to practice a long time before you're qualified. What are your thoughts on that?
No, there are some people, I mean, I don't know, a very small amount of people where, because they're so spiritually sensitive, that they just read something and they will have the entity under their command. But the chances of that are very, very slim. I have never met anyone like that, neither has my teacher. My teacher is 61 years old, and we have traveled everywhere. We never met anyone like that.
So either you're born with it or you got to earn it, is what you're saying.
99% of the people have to earn it. 99.5% have to earn it.
I see.
And these entities are going to say, what is so special about you? You think I'm going to go ahead and serve you because you read something? No. When the entity sees, oh, wow, this person for the last 11 years has been reading the same exact thing at the same exact time, doing all these diets, doing the things. It's like
building a relationship or building a muscle.
Exactly.
It takes time.
Exactly. That's how my teacher says it. It's a relationship. Well, you might not be able to see them, but they see you, and they see what you're doing. They see what you're doing when you're not doing a ritual. And eventually they just become, I guess they get feelings towards you. They enjoy you. They like what you do. And then they'll say, okay, you know what? They'll say to themselves, next ritual this person performs, it'll be a successful one, God willing. We will come in front of them and say to them, hey, son of Adam, why have you been doing this ritual for the last 11 years? And if the answers are correct and the conditions are met, then this person is very lucky and he has an entity companion to assist them with specific things. But when it comes to black magic and dark magic, less time is needed. It can be done in weeks.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you're trying to attract an entity that wants to do what you're asking it to do anyway, and you would be contacting an entity that's dark or has those malicious intent anyway, then they're going to be much more likely to play ball, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, that's why a lot of people choose black magic over, like the Rouhani alone, because it's easier. It's less sacrifices, it's less time. Some people get lucky on their third try.
Yeah, but let me tell you, the retirement plan for the black side of the arts is not nearly as good.
We know a lot of practitioners in black art. We know a lot, and they don't have a good life, and they admit it. They know it. They have a really shitty life. Always health problems, financial problems. Always conditions need to be met, and
negativity begets negativity.
Exactly. You're going to be around a group of bad people for 10, 12 years. It's going to take a toll on you. If you're going to be around a demonic entity, it's really going to mess you up. While you can hurt other people, you're going to be hurting too.
Yeah, and you've got to be on the defensive all the time, I would imagine, because those guys are just looking. They're just looking for an opportunity.
Any opportunity. Hey, how cool would it be for me to ruin this person's life and the person who brought me forward? But you know what? The person who brought me forward, he's just doing a lot of BS for me. Let me go ahead and cut him a slack. But hey, one little mistake, I'm going to mess him up too. That's all you think.
That makes so much sense. Okay, I get that now. So from a ritual perspective, can you walk us through what a typical exorcism looks like from an Islamic perspective, like the actual ritual itself.
Exorcism to help a person, or a ritual to try to get an entity to serve you? Which one?
I didn't realize there was a difference. Can you explain the difference?
Well, an exorcism ritual is me, say, there's a person named Brian who's possessed by a demon. I'm going to do a ritual to get that demon out of Brian. Or, everything is fine, I'm a healer, but I want to go the extra mile, and I want to be able to help people more fully, so I want to have an entity companion. Now I'm going to do a ritual among myself in my own house, in specific conditions. If everything pans out well, I'll have a entity companion to assist me when I need to do exorcisms, assist me when I need to reverse black magic.
I gotcha. So it's sort of calling a spiritual companion or an ally versus driving one out of somebody.
Exactly. Yep.
So we were just talking about the process of actual exorcism to actually drive out an entity and to sort of get into that vibe. How does that process work exactly?
Okay, well, the most common and preferred method is through ruqya, R-U-Q-Y-A, which pretty much means reciting the Quran over the patient. Specific verses, specific prayers, specific verses that mention jinn, specific verses that mention how everyone will be punished for their decisions. That's the main way to drive an entity. See, we are a solid object, being you. We're made from clay, it is said. So when a solid object hits us, like if somebody hit me with a baseball bat, of course it's going to hurt. With entities and jinns, they're fires, kind of like an energy. And words, specific words, have energies behind them. And when those words are said properly, with the proper faith, they turn into weapons and they burn the entity. That's why the Bible and the Quran, even the Torah, when they read specific verses on a person who's possessed, they see that this entity, well, it looks like the person at the time is in pain, which is really the entity's in pain. So the more preferred method is to recite specific verses over the person. And that's also the most common method. Some people who have entities as companions, they use that by simply giving a command, but they also have to do the reciting. You just can't sit back and say, hey, entity companion, go heal that person. It doesn't work that way. We still have to do our part. But my teacher says you should only use the entity companion in really, really serious cases. In more than half of his exorcisms he's performed, he's done them without the help of his entities. He did it through just reciting the Quran. In very serious cases, where death is a factor, where the person who's performing the exorcism can be hurt even after the person leaves the victim's house, those are specific times when you want to use an entity, because the main focus is you don't want to lose faith in God. If every time you're going to go to an exorcism and you're going to remember, hey, my entity's going to help me, now you have faith in the entity. And that right there is a sin. So you should always have faith in God and only use the big guns when really, really needed to.
That makes perfect sense to me. I operate exactly the same way. So, let me get back to my notes here. So that sounds very familiar, actually, compared to the other exorcism rituals from other faiths. When you recite the holy text or the sacred text, whatever it is, with the intent of driving out the entity, then it causes them pain or they burn. So that seems to be a very, very similar mechanic. Okay, what sort of precautions do you guys take? And sort of to follow up on that, what are you taking those precautions against? Like, what kind of problems can arise?
Okay, first thing is you have to be, it's like with any job, you have to see if you're capable of doing the job. A person shouldn't jump into something only because they think they can do it, because you'll just end up being hurt. When you're dealing with an entity, they know things that will blow your mind. My teacher tells me of a story that there was this female who was possessed. She was fairly young. I think she was in her early teens. And her father called a Amil, a healer, to come to her house and look at her daughter. He also called my teacher at the time. Well, this guy, the other healer, got to the female's house first and was diagnosing her. And finally, my teacher came in. And since he got there first, my teacher said, if you can do it all, I'll just sit back and watch. I like to learn from everything. And as he started performing his ruqyah, that was reciting of the Quran, the girl, the entity inside the female started laughing really loud. And it said, "You are going to use those words to hurt me when I think it was the night before or the last night you were with a different woman who wasn't your wife." That right there, now if someone says that to you, first of all, you're not gonna know what to think. Your mind's gonna be boggled. Second of all, you're gonna be kind of scared. I mean, like holy crap, this thing just said something to me, and then you're gonna be embarrassed. There goes your faith. There goes the energy behind the words. It's not gonna work.
Right. He puts you off balance.
It puts you off balance. So you really have to be at a specific spiritual position to form exorcisms. You have to have the proper knowledge, and you have to live by those codes. You can't be going out and getting drunk and, fooling around, and the next day perform exorcisms. It's never going to work that way. These people live pious lives, Christian or not, Muslim, Jewish. Whoever performs them, look at the ones that perform them. They're fairly pious people. No one's an angel. Everyone makes mistakes, but they're fairly pious. They're not cheating. They're not doing strip clubs. They're not gambling. They're not doing a lot of the big sins. And only then, when you live that pious life, you can use those religious words. Because how can a sinner use religious words to ward off evil off another person? Maybe you can use those words to benefit yourself in certain circumstances, but to use those words coming out of your mouth after you sinned to help someone else, it's very minute. So you have to live and follow the codes in order to perform an exorcism. The other precautions we take are some people, before they walk in the house, will read specific prayers and make like a imaginary circle around them. It's called a hisar, Hisar. This is a circle made by you, around you, head to toe. You read specific verses from the Quran, blow on your finger, and make a circle around you. This protects you so the entity can't definitely harm you. And that's like the main thing. Some people carry specific amulets that have verses of the Quran. All these little things help.
That's really interesting. You made me think when you were talking about you have to be in a holy place. You can't be sort of a hypocrite. The Roman ritual for the Catholics actually addresses that specifically. If you look at the Roman ritual, they literally say, and I can't quote it verbatim, but don't despise me. It's I am a sinner. It's the Most High that commands you, and that's where the whole power of Christ compels you. It's not my power; it's the power of Christ that compels you. So it's interesting. They take that same sort of perspective on it.
Exactly. The Book of Roman Rituals, the Quran. At the end of the day, we need to do good in order to get good. I mean, you can't be bad. You can't be doing bad things and think, hey, I'm going to go to this person's house for exorcism, then I'm going to go out and have a couple of drinks. It's not going to work out that way. It doesn't work that way. That's why not everyone can perform exorcism. If it was that simple, every time you have a person getting possessed, their mother or their father, brother or sister would just simply go in their room, read their verses, and that'd be that. But it's not that easy.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not that easy. And you have to have faith in what you're doing. Your belief system has to be...
That's the main thing.
Yeah, you got to have faith. I do wonder, though, if your belief system was structured such that it was okay if, and I don't know of any religion that does this, but if your specific belief system was structured that it's okay for you to go out and sin and you still have that spiritual authority, if it would still work from sort of a mechanical perspective, if that would still...
I see what you're saying, but you have to ask yourself, what spiritual authority would they be using? It can't be the Quran, it can't be the Bible, because those speak specifically against sinning. So it would have to be a spiritual knowledge of some kind that they brought, that they figured out on their own. And from what I'm aware, there isn't any. If you're going to use a religious scripture, I'm talking about the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, you have to follow its codes. You have to live by the codes in it. Now,
Right.
you're saying that someone goes ahead and can go out and drink and go out and gamble, can do these things from exorcism, not from the Bible, not from the Quran, not from the Torah, not from those books. You're not going to get any help. Maybe you will. I'm not God.
Right.
Anything can happen. But technically speaking, it's not going to happen.
Interesting. It's all woven into that belief structure and what you believe. So, have you actually been a party to or involved directly in an investigation or not an investigation?
Actually,
I'm sorry, an exorcism.
I've been in between 9 and 11.
I'm sorry, say again?
Between 9 and 11, somewhere in between there, 9, 10, or 11. I don't really remember.
So,
yeah,
what was your first one like?
Well, the first one consisted of my wife. That was more of an emotional, it was something new. But from another victim, the first exorcism I seen, a full-blown exorcism I seen, it wasn't my wife, another victim. It was scary. I just watched. He wanted me to watch and see what happens. So, because of a medical background, he said, ask yourself if this can medically happen. This is what I want you to see. I don't want you to see to learn. I want you to see to use the knowledge that you have and see if you can decipher why that person is acting from the medical knowledge you have. So the first two exorcisms I sat through was because of that reason. And when you finally realize, like, hey, there's no medical way that a 12-year-old girl can pick up a 200-pound man throwing across her room, it's not going to happen. There's absolutely no way that a 13, 14-year-old boy who's strapped to a bed, hands and feet, he's going to rip him. He weighs like 80 pounds. It's not going to happen. Speaking in different voices, not one, not two, but three. Okay, a lot of people can say, well, hey, you can make your voice deeper. How are you going to have three different voices come out of you? How? Three different voices coming out of you, each one saying a different thing. If somebody can tell me how that happens, I'll stop doing all this exorcism stuff. I won't believe it no more. You're not going to have a 12, 13-year-old boy speaking in three different voices. Once I've seen these things, then I realized why he wanted me to see, to have faith. Because if you're going to watch an exorcism with, hey, this person probably not possessed, something medically wrong with them, and then when you get there, you're like, wow, there's something not medically wrong with them, you're going to be confused, you're not going to be able to perform exorcism. But if you sat and watched them and realized, hey, this can't happen, there's no medical knowledge of this happening, this has to be something else. Only then, when you believe it, have faith in it, you can go ahead and exercise it, you can go ahead and work with it, deal with it, and learn from it.
That makes sense to me. Seeing is believing. It sounded like he wanted you to be witness so you could get a better respect for what you were dealing with.
That, and he also wanted me not to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. He wanted me not to learn. He said, I will help you get to a specific spiritual level, but I insist you do not go any further than that. And I asked him why. My teacher's not married. He's 61 years old. He's not married, no kids. I don't think any of his parents have passed away. He's all alone. And he said, look at me. He said, I am 61 years old, and I have nobody. I have no friends. I've never done anything remotely fun. I've never been to Disney World. When I was in the Middle East, we would do things with friends, but I've never done half of the things that you could do. And I couldn't do these things because I spent so much time learning. When I would learn from one teacher, I would go to a different teacher. Everything I did, all the money I saved. My teacher's he trained in Africa for 4 years, Pakistan for 5 years, Indonesia for 8 years, Egypt, Lebanon, Saudi. He's trained everywhere. And now, for years and years. And while he was training, there's a lot of things he couldn't do. So he would always say to me, get yourself to a spiritual level where you can help the average person. But don't get so far that you become like me. But now I'm nowhere near capable of doing the things he can do. Some of the things he can do is mind-blowing. But I can do a lot of the things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't dedicate the proper time. Honestly, I still, we're pretty fortunate. So I didn't have to work. My father, he owns a lot of real estate, so I'm really fortunate in that. And the fact that I can move away from my family and them still be cool with it, that was also a plus. And then everything else, like, vacationing and going out and having a good time, I just really didn't care to do it. I really didn't, because I was so determined to learn. This was my fun. As much as I hated it, I also enjoyed it. So I didn't want to do anything else. And when he seen the dedication, there was one time I didn't leave the house for 8 months. I did a ritual for 8 months. I didn't leave the house for 8 months. I didn't step outside of my door. I had to be in a closed room for 120 days. My wife would bring the food, put it outside, knock on the door, and I can only go out, and nobody could see me to take a shower and use the bathroom. Then I have to go back in the room. I was in this room for 120 days, and then after 120 days, I couldn't leave the house. And he's seen this, and when he's seen the dedication, he said, okay, fine, if you want to get to the spiritual level, which I didn't want to get you at, but now that I see you want to get there, I'll help you every bit of the way. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, it sounds like he's really kind of got your best interest at heart, and he knows on some level that what he's doing is probably dangerous, and the sacrifices he's made. Even in my own work, I deal with some dangerous situations, and I worry for my wife and my daughter.
Of course.
So why do you feel like you have this level of dedication? Why are you putting yourself in danger?
When a person, going back to my wife again, when a person has something possessing them, people are going to think you're crazy. Just imagine something, God forbid, possesses you. Anybody you talk to laughs at you. You go to your doctor, he puts you on medication. Just imagine how you're going to feel now. You're going to go home every single night. You're going to be tortured by these demons. And then in the morning, you're gonna want, it's in human nature to talk to another person. We can't be alone. We like to discuss our feelings, majority of us. And then when you go tell one of your friends, hey, look, I'm having these dreams, I'm waking up with scratches, the person's gonna think, dude, you're crazy. And then this person might not want to be around you. It's just, when you can help a person, they're hopeless. They at times will think, is this really happening? And when you can help that person who everyone has turned away, it's really rewarding. It really is. Once that entity leaves the person's body, and how they look, and how they're crying, and how their faces changes, it's really rewarding. And they all say, no one believed me, and they only believed me when things got this bad. If things didn't get this bad, if they didn't let things get this bad, I would have been better. But they had to wait this long to bring you guys over here. And when this person is helped, and you can see that, their life is back to normal, they can go out, with their husbands and wives, go to the movies, do all the things that they couldn't do. It's rewarding. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I really do. I immense amount of respect for you, man. That's why I still do the work that I do. So, right. But I don't put myself to nearly the level of exposure it sounds like you guys do. And
but you're still in the situation. You still probably go to places that are haunted. Demons can follow you. You know this thing, and you still do it. This is a level of dedication that everyone should respect. Believe it or not, don't believe it, but look at it as we believe it. And just for 1 minute, believe in this stuff is real. And for that minute, ask yourself, will you put yourself in front of these things if they really were real in your mind? And most of them will say no. And then respect the person who's actually doing it.
Yeah, I've actually had what I would consider a real bona fide demon follow me home from a case that was a really, really dark case, and I'm just so thankful that I had that I'd put in the time and the study, and I had the skill and the knowledge and the faith to be able to deal with that and to deal with it with authority and not allow it to infiltrate my life the way it could have.
Exactly. This stuff is real. It happens. And unfortunately, people have to see on a first-hand basis to believe it.
Yeah, I tell skeptics all the time, it doesn't really matter if you don't believe in them, they believe in you. Oh,
yeah. And that's all that matters. Yeah. A lot of people say, if I don't believe in them, they can't harm me. Are you serious? There's a lot of ignorant things to say, even if they're real, I don't believe in them. And because I don't believe in them, they can't harm me. They think of And how in Freddy Krueger, when he comes to the girl, she says, "I don't believe in you. You're not real. It's not going to make you leave." They'll probably just laugh at you. You know?
Yeah.
These things are real. They're spoken in majority of the religious scriptures. Majority of the cultures believes in some kind of demon. Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Jewish people. If every religion has been saying something like this exists for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, who are you to say it doesn't? Where's your proof that it doesn't exist?
Absolutely. It's the real deal. And when you put yourself through your own folly or lack of good judgment, in my case, in a situation where you're exposed to that, there's no denying it. As soon as you see it, man, you have to come to that realization that this is the real deal.
Yeah, either you're going to see it and you're going to learn from it, or you're going to see it and you're not going to be anywhere around it. You're just not going to want to, while you're there, you'll believe it. But once you leave, a day or two later, you'll start making up a bunch of excuses as to why those things happen, when technically there isn't any.
Yeah, I call that the self-preservation mechanism or the self-correcting mechanism. It's just a lot easier to rationalize what you saw than it is to actually come to terms with the truth.
It's human nature. This is how we're built.
Yeah, I tell people a lot of the time, it's kind of a mantra I use when talking about this kind of stuff. You have to move from a place where you're afraid of the things in the dark to a place where the things in the dark are afraid of you.
Exactly.
And that's a simple statement, and it's very cliche, and it takes a lot of time and dedication to move to that place. But once you do,
they are afraid of us, and they are. I'm sorry to cut you off, and they are afraid of us.
Absolutely.
If you have enough faith, trust me, they are more scared of us than we're scared of them. Bring king demons, king jinns. They're scared of us. Once they know this person has strong enough faith, they're not going to want to, have anything to do with you.
Absolutely. There's a guy on my team who I trained with a lot of the same techniques that I use, and he's a natural medium. He can draw down energy like nobody's business. He can channel that sacred light, and he's learning now to tone it down, because he would just walk into a building or that was infested, and the other mediums around who could talk to the entities were saying, "Oh, we got to get the hell out of here because this guy knows what he's doing."
Right.
So just hearing that crosstalk back and forth through our own mediums, they know what time it is when we come out to play. So I imagine you guys get a lot of the same sort of static.
Of course.
So
till now, even now when we go, I'm nervous, I'm a bit scared, I'm not going to lie to you and say, hey, it doesn't even faze me. Every single case that I've been through, that I've heard, phases me in a different way.
You're a fool if you walk in there thinking you're not gonna get a couple of bruises and that you're not in danger. You have to appreciate the danger in the situation.
If you're not going to be physically hurt, you will be spiritually hurt. After a full exorcism, depending how long it is, my teacher, at his age, he's a bit old, it's a bit fragile, so he's in bed for at least a week.
Oh, it takes a lot out of you. Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine reading something for 8 to 10 hours straight, not eating, using the bathroom minimally, reading, fighting with this thing for 4 or 5 days. It's hard. Imagine reading anything in your room for 8 to 10 hours straight. That's hard.
So, yeah, we can talk about this off the air, but I've got a tool that I've discovered recently that I think may be very valuable for you in your work. So we can discuss that later.
Sure.
So, talking about exorcism and how bad it can become, what's the worst thing that, other than obviously your wife, which was horrendously tragic, what's the worst sort of physical thing, or the most, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened, that you or your teacher have seen?
Well, my teacher has seen more of the, more wild things. Something that he told me about was, God, he's told me so many objects moving during exorcisms. The person lifting off the bed, not up to a couple of inches.
It's all intimidation, man.
Oh, that's all it is. Yeah. What I think fazed my teacher the most was the 3 or 4 different voices coming out of one person saying every one of them saying something different.
Yeah, or I think probably the smell sometimes that can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, because a lot of these demonic entities, they like to dwell in dirty places. That's why a lot of the black magic, especially the black magic performed in Asia, some of the conditions are horrible. I mean, I don't know if you want me to get into some of the conditions one has to follow to get a demonic entity. It's awful. I mean, the things you have to do, it's awful, and then you wonder why those things smell, why those people smell. I mean, I've known people in Indonesia who've ate their own feces, bathed in their own urine. These are all conditions that these entities say, hey, you want me to serve you? Why they do it is because you're pushing yourself further and further away from religion. You're pushing yourself further and further away from God. You're putting so much faith in this entity that you're eating your own feces.
Yeah.
These people, they smell really bad, and it's crazy. And when you ask them why they're doing this, and they really never have a good answer. I mean, some of them are nice people, don't get me wrong. They're nice people. I sat down with a couple of 3, 4 out of 10 are nice people. Some of them are not nice, but they really don't have an answer. And when you ask them, hey, are you happy about the things you did? Majority of them say no. We regret doing it. Majority of them.
Yeah, it's that whole path to power. People get seduced by the fast and the cheap, and they put good by the wayside.
Yeah, and what they don't realize is good might take a little bit more time, but it will benefit you so much more in this life and the hereafter. It really will.
Amen. Absolutely. So here's one of the questions that I've pondered in studying exorcism over the years. What keeps that entity, what keeps that the demon from coming back and reinfesting the same person again once you drive them out?
Okay, that's funny you say that because my teacher is actually working on God willing, he'll be working on his client soon, who's been to 11 different healers. He finds temporary relief, but the entity keeps coming back. Why this happens is either A, the person who's doing the healing is not fully prepared, or they're not at the proper level to keep the entity away. And the second reason is if this entity is being sent to you via a person, a black magician, he just keeps on bringing new entities over and keeps sending them to you. How this can be prevented is, I'll speak some of the methods we do. My teacher, after the entity is removed, and if there's a chance of it coming back, he will put a protective circle around you that he will go ahead and renew weekly for a year straight. And
okay.
You will also have to do specific readings. There's rules you got to follow. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
There was this lady we were helping. Okay, she's in Texas, and my teacher helped her for like 6 months. And she would say, hey, I'm finding relief. She would email us, hey, things are getting better. Thank you so much. And then like a month later, she would say, it's all starting over again. And because we didn't see this person, we didn't see them in person, everything was via email, we were just so confused about it. And my teacher will always say, look, she's doing something wrong. I know she's doing something wrong. And I'm like, what could she be doing wrong? He was like, I know she's Muslim and she prays 5 times a day, but she's doing something that's not right, something that's against the Muslim faith. That's why a lot of things we're doing, it's all based on the Quran, not having that much effect on her. Come to find out, we are only supposed to eat halal meat, which is like kosher meat, blessed meat.
Right.
So I can't walk into McDonald's and eat a burger. I'm only supposed to eat blessed meat. She wasn't eating blessed meat. Another thing she was doing was she had a boyfriend. Another thing she had a dog in her house. We say in our religion, a house that has dogs, angels will visit that house. Some people will beg to differ, but I'm just telling you, some of the things we believe in. So once my teacher gave me a list, he goes, ask her all these things. It was like 25 different things. And I asked her, and sure enough, 3 or 4, she said, oh, I thought these things were okay. And we were like, no, these are not okay. So as soon as she got rid of those things, it was really hard for her to get rid of her dog and break up with her boyfriend. said that if you want to be with him, just marry him. You've been with him, long enough. But once she stopped all those things, she's perfectly fine now. She married that guy, and she's fine now. But when she was doing all those things that are forbidden in Islam, what we were doing was only having temporary healing. It would always, a month or two later, she would have the same problem, worse.
Because she wasn't fixing the root of the problem. She wasn't fixing
exactly. Right.
Was that the same person that you guys had actually, she asked for a jinn and you guys gave her one and she promised to follow the rules?
No, that was completely, that was a post I just did out. That was a completely different person. That was a different person. That was just a customer who emailed my teacher wanting an entity. Didn't have no problem, just wanted one. She was naturally sensitive. And then from the post, you can see all the mistakes that she made.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys don't have good luck in Texas.
No, we done 3 in Texas. Yeah, Texas is bad.
So why do you think jinn, other than the romantic stuff that we were talking about, what other motivations might a jinn have to possess somebody?
Us disrespecting them. It says a lot of entities, a lot of jinns, they, I guess, dwell underneath trees. They relax underneath trees. There's been times where so-and-so had to urinate, went ahead and urinated by a tree and got possessed 2 days later. It says if you have boiling hot water, don't throw it outside. Put it in the gutter because it can affect the jinn. And even though the jinns know that we can't see them, and if we did urinate by a tree where they were sitting or anything that they don't like, they know that's happened by accident, but it just gives them a reason to possess. There's been many, many cases where a person did something wrong, disrespectful to a jinn, that the person was getting attacked, urinating in the wrong place, throwing warm water somewhere, stuff like that, and then eventually the person ends up having problems.
So even if you don't mean to, even if you're not trying to cause injury,
yes.
So yeah, that sounds like jinn are just a bunch of pricks, really.
Exactly, yeah, and they know, during exorcisms, my teachers ask, hey, I know this person urinated by a tree, but he couldn't see you. And they say, oh, we know he couldn't see us. Well, why'd you do it? Because you gave us a reason to. Well, what's the reason? He urinated under the tree, but he can't see you. We know he can't see us. It's so ignorant.
It's a circular. Yeah. They were looking for an excuse. That's really what was going on.
That's all they want. That's all it is, yeah.
So how would somebody who doesn't have the spiritual awareness, how might they ward off or avoid jinn or a malicious spirit?
Exactly how the Quran tells you to do it, how the religious scholars tell you to do it. Hey, if you're outside, you need to urinate, you got to do your thing. I mean, it is what it is. Just say, before you go in that area, just say Bismillah, which means I'm stepping in this place, God protecting me, something of that sort. Say something. Say something that, hey, I'm going to be doing something as odd as it sounds, but specific, like it says, if you're going to throw, in the Islamic faith, if you're going to throw warm water outside, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which means, God, I seek refuge in you, protect me from Satan. Once you say those words, this is also letting the jinn know, hey, it's about to do something, let me move out of the way.
Okay, so, yeah. Mutual respect.
Mutual respect, yeah.
So if someone believes they're under spiritual attack and they're not Muslim, do you guys help in that situation? How do you handle
it? Absolutely. We have a lot of Christian clients, Hindu clients, Jewish clients, plenty. And first thing, you ask is, hey, do you respect the faith? More than half say yes. 99% say yes, we respect the faith. Do you believe in the faith? Yeah, we believe in it. There's some things that we question or might not agree on, but overall, yeah, we believe in there's one God. We believe in not to do bad. You can still help those people, absolutely.
Do you guys charge for your services? How do you?
We do. Depending, because this is how my teacher, even though my family's fortunate enough, he still wants to do his part, even though he's not expected to, but this is how he makes his living, pays his own little personal bills. Yeah, absolutely, we charge. for our services, but there's been plenty of times where we haven't charged. I would say if there's 100 clients, 60 will charge, 40 we won't.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but majority of the cases that involve exorcism, if a person is really possessed and they don't have the money, we have to do it. And if we find out about it and they ask us, we have to do it.
Yeah, it's a moral obligation, really, at that point.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what about spirit keeping? Let's talk about that a little bit, because this is something that's new to me, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the process? Sorry.
Well, see,
what is spirit keeping?
That's how I got into it. Spirit keeping is pretty much when you buy objects that supposedly have an entity, a jinn or something bound to it. And then from there, depending on the item, you'll perform the specific invocation, specific ritual, and then develop the bond. Some people have 4 or 5 different enchanted objects that have this or that entity in it. That's considered spirit keeping. It's like having having a goldfish, a bunch of goldfish. I'm a goldfish keeper. Similar spirit keeping. You have, technically you didn't invoke these entities, but you bought them. Someone else invoked them. Someone else bonded them. But now you have them for whatever reason you bought them for.
That seems like, to my untrained eye, like you're asking for trouble.
It's the most stupidest thing. It's stupid. So, as with anything, there's pros and cons behind it. But my teacher, like when people ask them to give them an entity, I see people, if you go on the internet, they sell hundreds by the month. Which, I'm not going to get into other sellers and what they do, but my teacher only gives specific entities to specific people who have the proper knowledge, who are capable of handling them, who've had past experiences dealing with entities. I think he does between 4 or 6 a year.
Does he require any kind of special training before he'll even talk to them about anything? Yeah, that's probably nice.
If a person buys an object that has something binding to it, a lot of people, a new person like me at the time, I thought, hey, if I buy this entity, it's going to be so cool because I'll be able to talk to it. I'll be like my best friend. This is so not true. Oh, because you buy an object that has an entity attached to it, it does not mean you will see it. It does not mean you will sense it or hear it. See, we say there's jinns all around us, everywhere. There's some that live among us. So I ask those people, look outside your window. Do you see any jinn? And they say no. Well, then what makes you think because you bought something, you can be able to see it? And then we also say, if you are a multimillionaire and you go buy an airplane, does it mean you'll be able to fly it? No. Oh, you have the money to buy it. You have the money to keep it, but do you have the knowledge to fly it? No, you don't. So what do you have to do? You have to learn how to fly it. You can buy an entity. Go ahead and knock yourself out. Buy all the entities you want, but don't think you're going to become, a healer, a psychic. Absolutely not. I know people who have hundreds and hundreds of vessels, and they can't sense a thing. And they keep on buying more vessels thinking they'll be able to sense it. No. In order for you to sense that entity, either you are going the dark route or the white, black magic, Rahani, white magic, anything. You have to bring yourself to a spiritual level where you can sense and see and hear those things. And if you don't bring yourself to that level, buying something will not give you a shortcut where you're able to sense and see. A lot of people don't understand this.
What's the process? And I completely agree with that. I love your analogy about if you're a millionaire and you have an airplane, that doesn't mean you know how to fly the damn thing. Yeah. That's perfect. That makes brilliant sense to me. And I'm glad you guys go through some sort of screening process. So I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what are some of the reasons that somebody gives you for, just give me one. I want an entity anyway, even though I can't see it. What are they after? What are they looking for?
Okay. Say you want to help people. We'll say you're Muslim. You have knowledge of the Quran. But you have a wife, you have kids. You want to help people, but you don't got the time and years and years to invest to get yourself to a spiritual level where you can conjure your own entity, but you want to be able to help people. And you want to do this, with something on your side. Even though you can, so if this person ends up getting an entity, even though you can sense it, you can still command it to do things for you. So that's another reason why people want these entities. When people buy stuff, they're going to help me make money and this and that, which is not true, by the way. But, when we give an entity to someone, they want it for, hey, I want to be able to help people. So that means while you're doing your part of the work, you can also say, hey, so-and-so, could you also assist me in helping this person with this and that problem?
So what compels that entity to do what you, quote-unquote, command it
first,
to?
It's not as easy as going on the internet and buying an entity, as a lot of people have made it seem. They list the object and they have $49.99, come and buy it. And it doesn't work that way. Before you give someone an entity, you have to see, I'll tell you my teacher's method. He'll get your information, which is your first name, your last name, and your mother's name. Why your mother's name is to track down your energy. There can be 1,000,000 Jane Does, but there's probably much less Jane Doe, daughter of Mary Doe. You see what I'm saying? So it's easier to track that person.
Yeah.
So,
you need a link to that person.
Once that happens, a ritual is performed. Yes, an open conjuration to see if anything comes forward for that person. A lot of time, negative things will come forward. A lot of time, nice things will come forward. And then you decipher, you see which one is suitable for that person. Majority of the time, nothing comes forward for that person. Nothing. This is why I can't grasp the concept of people buying things from the internet and then thinking they have all these jinns in their house, in their drawer. A jinn needs to agree with you for it to, serve you. So when my teacher performs a ritual, he sees if anything comes forward. If something does come forward, say if 3 different things come forward, he'll get the characteristics, see what each one specializes in, and tell the client, hey, these 3 things came forward for you. This is good for this is good for that, this is good for that. And then the client can pick. Many times, even though something comes forward for you and the client has already picked, hey, I want option B, when the client finds out, okay, I have to do this, and this to get the entity to stay by me, they usually back out. A lot of times the entity will come just to be a smart ass and say, oh yeah, we'll work with this person. But then once my teacher starts putting in the work, the hours, it's kind of like a punishment. Hey, you called us. We know we're not going to help that person because you still did it. Now you're going to get punished and him. So my teacher will start doing the fasting, start doing the ritual, start doing the praying. And the entity will say, okay, if you want me to go to Mike Doe, he needs to go ahead and feed 400 people every single month. Are you serious? How am I going to feed 400 people every single month? Half the people can't feed the people in their house. And then the entity will say, okay, well, that's my condition. And I'm not asking for something bad. I'm not asking to do something bad, something sinful, so you can't criticize me for it. I'm wanting him to feed 480 people every single month. And if he can't do it, then too bad. And then we tell the client, sorry, these conditions can't be met. Try again later.
That almost sounds like a dedication. Like you have to prove that you're going to be dedicated to do this thing. Okay, that makes sense. What about the process of, and it's interesting too, as you were describing that, it sounds like he's putting out a call or a beacon to say, hey, who wants to come work with this guy? Is there anybody out there that wants to do this? And then you sort of discern based on who responds to the call. Okay, that makes perfect sense. What about the process of without getting into the actual ritual, once there's that bond that's established or that binding that's established to, I'm assuming, some object or something, what's the process for transferring the spirit? How does the mechanics of that work?
At times, the object is a stone, and either it's brought to you by the entity, hey, this is what I want to be binding to, or they will ask for a specific stone. And now I see, a lot of people having entities binding to, like, I've seen on eBay a couple of years ago, a penny, like a penny. It was for like $150 and had entity attached to it, which is complete BS. So someone just paid $150 for a penny. How crazy is that?
Right.
Entities are all...
But it's a special penny. It's a magic penny.
But entities can only be binded to specific objects, specific stones. A stone that can handle that energy. Because a lot of times the stone will just crack as you're trying to bind it. It'll split in half, or get a nice hairline crack on it, which makes the stone useless. If the stone can't be found, if it's like a sacred item or a specific stone, a specific size, density, you can ask the entity, hey, can you bring me this stone? If you're really willing to work with it, like, can you bring me the stone? And the entity will bring the stone to you. Once you get this...
As in he'll help you find it, or he'll literally go,
he'll bring it to you. Like, yeah.
Wow, like just boom, it's there.
Something like that, yeah. Once the object is there, you do the proper rituals to bind the entity to it. Now, you ask that the entity will tell you, hey, you are going to bind me in that stone, so I will live in that stone. I'll be in there. I won't be able to leave. I'll be only around the person who wears a stone. Another method is, okay, this is the communication beacon. My energy is attached to it. Whenever he needs me, he will do this and that. Kind of like a phone call. You need me, call me. And once you figure out the method, then you bind it. The binding consists of specific Islamic rituals, specific words that need to be read, fasting, offering of specific, burning specific incense. You know, they like these things. Giving a X amount of dollar to poor people, which we call sadaqah. And then the entity is binded to that object.
Okay. So if, say, in the communication method where you're essentially putting together a telephone, once you've learned to evoke that entity through that totem or that object, do you still need that object? I mean, can you wean yourself off of the object, or do you still have to have that?
95% of the time you still need the object. Why? Because you didn't invoke that entity. You did absolutely nothing. Someone else invoked it for you and binded it to that object. For that reason, you need to have this object with you in order to invoke me. In rare cases, after a number of years, or the entity is very powerful and likes this person a lot, he will say, look, this is my name. You need to have the vessel. It needs to be yours. It has to be in a place of yours. It has to be in your house, in your room. It can't be at a friend's house or a locker somewhere. You just come, you just say this or that, and I will come.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So if somebody basically doesn't have the ability to call an entity forth on their own, then they essentially have to use this as a crutch. Otherwise, they could have done the summoning on their own.
I mean, yeah, a person can do a summoning on his own, but the chances of him being successful is really slim.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, are there any other special rules that are associated with spirit keeping?
As far as ours, yeah, there's plenty of rules. Can't drink with the vessel on. Vessel can't be taken to the bathroom. Specific prayers need to be read once a week. Specific oil needs to be applied to the stone. Can't ask you to do specific things. Can't keep it on you if you're being intimate with your spouse. When not in use, keep it in a high, clean area. I mean, not difficult things, but there's a number of rules.
They all sound like gestures of respect,
exactly.
Essentially.
You don't want to be urinating and have your vessel with you. It's kind of rude.
Yeah, I completely agree. If I were a jinn and somebody did that to me, I would not be happy about that.
Yeah, it's disrespectful.
Wow, my mind is just racing. We could keep going for hours. Right. This is a lot of it's new information to me. So I think we'll probably call the interview here, unless, Keith, you've got anything else you want to throw in.
No, I mean,
Keith,
it's all very fascinating to me.
You got my number now. You can call me whenever. Normally we sleep fairly late. I sleep maybe between 1 and 3 a.m. So any questions, call me, text me, no problem.
You're going to regret
Yeah,
it.
you really
absolutely
are.
not.
Because once this
No,
soaks in and all the questions come popping up in my brain,
this is all I do. Believe me, I don't work. This is all I do. And just like you guys, I find it fascinating. You know, so if I can help someone, like I'm enjoying this right here. I don't like talking on the phone, but this is really, I'm enjoying this.
we
And
love it too, man. We love it too.
and you guys are really cool. You guys are really you're genuine. You know, you're good people. That was my only concern. You know, a lot of times a lot of people have asked my teacher to do these same interviews. You are the first one we agreed to, and a lot of times we start doing these.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
A lot of times we start doing these rituals. They really want to get you on the phone to criticize you. You know, sometimes it's just a Muslim. Sometimes it's a Muslim person saying, "Hey, you're doing everything against Islam. You're conjuring the devil. You're doing something. You're doing, you know." Or it's another person saying you're crazy. So we're really careful on who we talk to.
Well, you know, when he told me he had a Muslim that was into exorcists, I said, "Man, I cannot wait to talk to this guy. This is such a unique opportunity," you know. And
Right.
he was already telling me what a unique opportunity it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now you guys have my number. Anytime you want, any questions you have, you know, any problems, let us know. We're more than happy to help you guys.
Wow, I told you we would learn a lot, and I certainly did. I had no idea the Quran and Western Christianity were so similar. There's really only a couple of differences. And again, just like we discussed in the interview, it seems like we're just quibbling about the details, which is really unfortunate. So, I want to sincerely thank Ali for his time. I cut it out of the interview, but we actually had to stop halfway through, the interview for him to, administer to his prayers as required by his faith. And, he was gracious enough to come back after that and finish the interview. We truly appreciate that. I also want to thank, Brother Ali and, Brother Rahman both for the work they do. Words can't convey the courage that it takes for these gentlemen to step into harm's way in the circumstances they do. So, we're just honored beyond words to have them on the podcast. Lastly, if you or someone you know is someone we should talk to, someone we should help get the word out about, please feel free to contact us through our website, higherconsciousnessradio.com. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.